it's quite symbolic for HerZOG, certainly. Chaim Herzog was the first, I think, Israeli president to visit Germany, of course, about 70-something years ago. And the Speaker of the House, the President of the Bundestag, Barbel Bas, will now be speaking. If you could kindly, Professor Dax, assist us, we'll be happy to hear what she's saying.
She's addressing the people sitting all in the Parliament. Also the head of the Supreme Court is there.
Verehrte Gäste, die Weltgeschichte kennt kein Beispiel für den
The history of the world doesn't know any other example of the destruction track that the Nazi regime has done against the Jewish people. Millions of innocent people had been killed. These words have not been said 70 years ago when the Luxembourg Agreement had been signed. The Israeli Foreign Minister Moshe Sharet didn't do this prepared speech at the request of the Germans. For Konrad Adenauer, the agreement with Israel was a moral duty, and he was ready to do this against all resistances, also in the German parliament. Adenauer knew that the majority of the Germans had not been ready at the time to hear the truth. Now it's stopped. It was
Wir eröffnen heute auch im Deutschen Bundestag eine Ausstellung.
We are opening also a new exhibition in the Parliament dedicated to this Luxembourg agreement. It shows the controversy on both sides, also in Israel, about this agreement and how this had been also the ambiguity with which it had been received by those who had been concerned.
Und im Knesset Museum konzipiert.
It was conceived by the Jewish Claims Conference and the Museum of the Knesset. To all those who organized this exhibition, I would like to express my thanks.
Ich zitiere noch einmal.
I'm quoting again Moshe Sharet.
Weltgeschichte,
the world history doesn't know any other example of the destruction war that the Nazis had done against the Jewish people. Repeating what you just said before.
Worte vor 70 Jahren. Sie wurden nicht ausgesprochen, für uns heute unvorstellbar.
These words had not been said. This is today unimaginable for us. We are today taking responsibility for the crimes of the Germans, but this view has only been established slowly over the years. We are thankful for that, for the engagement of many organizations doing with that, and victims who had found the strength to speak about what they have been through.
So wie die Auschwitz-Überlebende Eva Zepeschi,
as the Auschwitz survivor Sefi, who is also present at the opening of the exhibition. Be very welcome here.
Deutschland kann nicht wiedergutmachen.
Germany can't heal what can never be healed. The millions of murder of the Jewish people. This is why we have to awaken the memory of the victims and to give this hand further. This is why I'm very glad today that there are many young people here in the Parliament who are engaged in favor of remembrance and against anti-Semitism.
Um es noch einmal sehr deutlich zu
say it again in a very clear way,
die Verantwortung auch
from the past, we have a responsibility also for today. Jews have to be able to feel secure in Germany. Jews, German Jews, Israeli Jews, and it is very painful if we are not up to these standards.
So wie bei dem Attentat auf die israelische
As it happened at the attack in Munich in 1972, to which we memorized yesterday.
Für die Fehler und Versäumnisse
I would also like to apologize for the events at the time and the decades afterwards that have been very painful.
Ich bin froh, dass die
I'm
Bundesregierung
glad
und
that
die
the
Angehörigen
German government
eine Einigung gefunden
and the families of the victims found an agreement. No financial compensation can really repair what had happened, but this agreement means an acknowledgement of their suffering 50 years after this terrible attack. There is, one can say, a late but still an important sign of responsibility. And it is important that all the events of the time will be examined and really worked through. Also today you have hatred that is directed against Jews and against Israel.
Es ist eine Schande, dass jüdische oder
It is a shame that Jewish or Israeli establishments in Germany are only secure when there is police, that in social networks there is incitement against Israel, against Jews. We all have to be very decisive against these kind of moves.
Antisemitische Taten kommen nicht aus dem Nichts.
Anti-Semitism deeds are not happening out of nowhere. They are also being made possible by people looking away or by being too sure of oneself. Anti-Semitism is not only a problem of the past, not only a problem of the others, of the extremists. Anti-Semitism is in the middle of us, in the middle of the society. It is our responsibility, our duty to fight against it in all kinds of its forms.
Hinzu kommt,
one can add, anti-Semitism has become shown in more subtle form. There are new forms where old anti-Semitic ideas have been transferred to Israel.
Auch bei jenen, die sich im Dienst einer guten Sache sind.
That means there's also anti-Semitism among people who feel themselves doing a good deed. Anti-Semitism should not be tolerated in the world and definitely not among us in Germany.
Dies gilt übrigens genauso für jeden Versuch, die Einzigartigkeit des Holocaust zu relativieren.
Is also relevant for all tendency to relativize the Holocaust.
Israels Sicherheit ist Deutschlands
Israel's security is a duty for Germany's foreign policy. We are linked by common shared values for freedom and democracy, values that are violated in Ukraine nowadays. It is terrible that every day people are suffering in an attack war in Ukraine, among them also survivors of the Holocaust. Germans' relations with Israel will always be marked by the past. It has been often asked whether relations between Germans and Israelis can be normal. Yes, for a majority on both sides would say yes to this for the time being. We are fascinated by Israel's spirit of entrepreneur, of joie de vivre, and mainly of its people. Between our countries there is a very lively exchange, and it is important that as much people as possible would take part in this exchange. Also, those who are not studying, not working in international companies, or being able to fly, there should be possibilities to meet each other. There is a lively exchange of the German parliament with the Israeli Knesset. I would be very glad to have a German-Israeli youth forum to be established. We need the personal meeting for a sustainable and profound understanding. 35 years after the Luxembourg agreement, for the first time a German president visited Germany. At the time, the wall was, when he was in Berlin, it was HerZOG, yeah, when he spoke about an invisible wall between the two countries, in front of which we could only stand in silence. President HerZOG, your father was the first president of Israel who came here into this former building of the former Reichstag.
Das Wort ergreift. So unglaublich es Ihrem Vater erschien.
As unbelievable it seemed to your father, it is that we managed to get away with this wall that had stood between us. We can speak to each other about the very painful past, but also about the hopeful and optimistic future.
That was Barbel Bas, the president of the Bundestag, speaking there, and translated very kindly by the very distinguished Professor Gisela Dax. Thank you very much for making the effort to explain to us what she says with our lack of German translator today. I really appreciate it. And now that you had a sip of water, I do want to ask what you think about her speech, and what do you think the highlights were?
Well, I think many of those things were expected, but what you can hear out of that is saying that one also has to think about the future, the common shared things, values together. She mentioned also Ukraine. I think that is very important, what I said in this realization. What I liked very much on a personal level, she mentioned this normalization. And in fact, this goes back to our study at the Hebrew University, where we asked Israelis and Germans whether they see relations to Germany as normal. And you could really see in Israel, in a very interesting way, that it increased during the 90s, during until 2011, to almost 80%, and then now last year it went a little bit down, which was probably influenced by this what's happening in Germany, the far right and other things. But also in Germany, less so. People were feeling this increasingly, normal relation, whatever this, you can ask, this means between these two countries, but say having a younger generation that is very keen on learning. Also, in our study, what we see that at the end of the day, not many Germans have ever been to Israel, and I think that is what she mentions. It's not only those who have studied at the university, who are in their work in contact with Israel, to allow it to normal young people in Germany to be in touch and to know Israel, not only, in fact, via media images and others, but to learn to know the other side.
Thank you very much, Professor Dax. And we now want to turn again to the German Bundestag, where President HerZOG is taking stage. We can see blue and white flowers there today, decorating the stage for President HerZOG of Israel, whose father, Chaim HerZOG, was the first Israeli president to visit the Bundestag. We're going to take a listen now to what he has to say.
1,000 years ago, a storm blew through the Jewish communities in Germany. The first crusade hit the Jewish communities hard. It brought suffering, it brought torment. And this trauma created Ashkenaz, as the Jews call it, new practices of remembering. The old treasure of prayers was joined by a troubling prayer, which is part of the Jewish cycle of the year, the Iskol prayer. In its desperation, in its pain, the Jewish people addressed God in order to transfer this commemoration to God, as if they were to say, God, remember the things that we cannot forget. Ladies and gentlemen, as President of the State of Israel, the state of the Jewish people, I would like to open my address with the Iskol prayer, which I dedicate to the memory of our brothers and sisters who were killed, slaughtered, annihilated by the Nazis. Please rise for the Iskol prayer.
יזכור אלוהים את נשמות אחינו בני ישראל, חללי השואה וגיבוריה, נשמות 600 רבבות אלפי ישראל, שהומתו ושנהרגו ושנחנקו ושנקברו חיים, ואת קהילות הקודש שנחרבו על קדושת השם. יזכור אלוהים את עקדתם, עם עקדת שאר קדושי ישראל וגיבוריו מימי עולם, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם, הנאהבים והנעימים בחייהם ובמותם לא נפרדו, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותם, ונאמר אמן. מכובדיי, נשיא הרפובליקה הפדרלית של גרמניה, חברי הטוב,
President of the Federal Republic, my good friend from Walter Steinmeier, and his wife, Elke Budenbender, Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz, President of the Bundestag, Bärbel Baas, thank you very much for your moving words. President of the Bundesrat, Bodo Ramelow, President of the Federal Constitutional Court, Stefan Habert, dear representatives from all walks of life here in Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you, but I do not stand alone. I stand as an envoy, as the President of the State of Israel, the sovereign, democratic, national state of the Jewish people, and the realization, the embodiment of the prayers of numerous generations. I stand here as a proud son of the Jewish people, as the representative of the 9th generation of Rabbi Hillman, who was a rabbi of a community here in Germany. He was a successor to Rabbi Katzenelnburg from Hamburg and the surrounding communities. I'm here as the President of State, and I'm here with many dreams and crises, with pain and healing, with destruction and independence, that are inextricably woven. And I'm here to share a message, to share a commandment. Apart from the 10 commandments, and love your next as you would love yourself, is maybe the most moral and the most obligating commandment for every Jew, and that is remember. The Jewish nation is a nation of remembrance. Remembering is an indispensable part of our identity. When I step on German ground, I have memories. I'll take the picture album of my people from my backpack, and there's countless images of this country. Pictures of summits, picture of the deepest abysses. And this is what I want to talk to you about here today. I want to talk about the past and the future. And I quote, there's a stone set on my desk. It says, Amen. It's a triangular piece, a fracture of a wall of a Jewish cemetery, destroyed 1,000 years ago in the city where I was born. A single word, Amen, etched into that stone. It's hard, it's definite, it's a stone witnessing everything that ever happened and that will never happen again. May it be like this. Amen. These are the words that Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai wrote. He was from the city of Jerusalem. He was born in the Bavarian city of Würzburg as Ludwig Pfeiffer. And it seems that with these words he wants to navigate between pain and pride in this country, and he wants to bridge this chasm between his place of birth and his homeland. Throughout hundreds, thousands of years, Germany was a homeland for our people. It was comfortable. It was creative. It was a homeland where the Jewish people could prosper in culture, in spirit, in philosophy, in politics, in science, and in many other areas. The leading rabbis, the most influential rabbis in the history of our people, grew up here in Germany. This is where Rabbi Hashihaki grew up. The most significant rabbis of the Jewish people were selected. Rabbi von Rothenburg and many others called Harisharim, the first ones, to Rabbi Samson Hirsch and other members of the last generation. Germany was the homeland of many outstanding people of Jewish culture, spirit, the culture. Josef Mendelssohn, Joseph Geiger, and many others. Albert Einstein, Paul Ehrlich, Emmy Noether, Bertolt Auerbach, Kurt Weill, Else Lasker-Schüler. And here we have to mention the pioneers of social work, Sidivonsky, Sister Rosenbluth, and the influential Zionists who grew up in Germany and were able to flourish here, Rabbi Zwisch Karscher, Moses Hess, Warburg, and many, many others in all walks of life. All of these people were born here, they were educated, they were trained here, their personality was created here, they made a contribution for the Jewish people to prosper, for the German nation to prosper. So this country is their country in the deepest meaning. It is embedded in our DNA, the DNA of my people. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is no secret, this land, Germany, was the place where the greatest atrocities were committed, that the Jewish people had to suffer. It started with pogroms, uprisings, massacres, destruction of entire Jewish communities that recurred over thousands of years, way up to the deepest abyss of humanity, the Shoah. The history of mankind knows no comparable example to the atrocities committed by the Nazis and their henchmen. Never was a country like Germany responsible for the loss of all humanity, for the loss of all compassion, responsible for the intention to cruelly exterminate an entire people. My father, may he rest in peace, sixth president of the State of Israel, was among the commanders who liberated the concentration camps from the claws of the Nazi animals. And I will never forget the words he used to describe what he saw. The skeletons in striped prison suits, this hell on earth, people jammed together in barracks. Like you said, Madam President, he traveled to Germany in the year 1987 as the first president of Israel, and he started his visit in the death camp of Bergen-Belsen. 4 decades after he had seen it at the end of the war. During his visit, he said the following: "I do not bring forgiveness, I do not bring forgetting. Only the dead have the right to forgive. Only the dead have the right to forget. The living have no right to forget." This is what he said in his testament, which I carry with me in my heart. 35 years have passed since then, and a couple of hours from now, I will end my state visit in the camp of Bergen-Belsen. And I would like to repeat his words before you as representatives of the German people from all political parties. And I declare the Jewish people does not forget, not just because of our obligation towards past generations, also from our obligation towards generations of the future. It is not easy to actually do this remembering, because it is shattering, it is complex, it is hard, it is painful. It is painful for Germans, because there will always be people who will deny everything, who feel as if they were accused, who just want to see the past laid to rest. And in a very different way, it is also very complex and painful in Israel too. Remembering the Shoah is an indispensable part of our national identity. A people that holds these deepest abysses, these horrible experiences in its collective memory, that is not a people like any other. But despite all that, even if we cannot meet in our paths of remembrance, we still have to meet. We have to give meaning to remembrance, which means remembering is an obligation. It's a moral obligation. It is a responsibility. You cannot bridge the past. You cannot do away with the past. But the future is in our hands, and it holds great responsibility. So it belongs to both of us. It belongs to us. It belongs to you, because only together can we give meaning to remembrance. Only by meeting, only by deepening relations, only by holding up this mutual obligation towards freedom, humanity, democracy, apart from our obligation to freedom, security, and the prosperity of the Jewish people, both our peoples will give meaning to remembrance, and it will be used as an example for the entire mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, history links the Jewish people and the state of Israel with the German people. It is a link of memory, of meaning, which takes place in the past, in the present, but also in the future. If we look at the past, we have to still discuss, research the Shoah. We have to look at what happened in a realistic way. We have to fight against everybody who denies it. We have to turn every stone in order to try and understand what cannot be understood. If we look at the present, the main task that obligates us every day to not ignore hate, be it on the web, be it in social networks, be it in the streets, be it in the political centers. We have to fight anti-Semitism and racism wherever. We have to still discuss, research the Shoah. We have to look at what happened in a realistic way. We have to fight against everybody who denies it. We have to turn every stone in order to try and understand what cannot be understood. If we look at the present, the main task that obligates us every day to not ignore hate, be it on the web, be it in social networks, be it in the streets, be it in the political centers. We have to fight anti-Semitism and racism wherever we encounter it, decisively, without any compromise. We have to seek the way that we want to walk together.
We
have to seek the way that we walk together, oriented towards freedom, justice, mutual respect, tolerance, and partnership. If we look at the future, ladies and gentlemen, I would say that this obligation towards the future is a privilege. The partnership between Germany and Israel is known all over the world. It is our task to use this in order to create a glorious future, not just for our countries, but for the entire world. The state of Israel is an example of reconstruction, of success, of overwhelming contribution for humanity in culture, in medicine, in academics, in science, and many other areas. Throughout the years, Israel has cooperated and established partnerships with many European countries in many sectors. We participate in efforts to solve crises worldwide, among others the climate crisis. My country plays an important role when it comes to finding ways how to deal with the climate crisis, to develop new technologies. In the Middle East, Israel is the engine when it comes to establish partnerships in the region. We have new peace agreements, we have normalization, we have dialogue, we have rapprochement, and in thus we have created good neighborly relations and growth in our region that we've never seen before. We never shied away from criticism. We never ignored criticism or tried to suppress criticism. But one thing we will demand from our critics: to check everything and to make sure that the criticism is embedded in truth. We extend our hand to everybody, to our neighbors, and deepening our relations with our neighbors. That is a real thing, and that refers to the entire region. That is the truth too. Israel has always and will always strive to establish neighborly relations with all states and peoples of the Middle East. And this effort will continue, and it is, of course, also true for our Palestinian neighbors. This is part of the hope and the objective that we will never give up, because this obligates us and Palestinians to face reality, to undertake every efforts to make this future a good future. Our Palestinian neighbors have to fight terror and have to seize terror right away. Just yesterday, President Steinmeier and myself spoke to relatives and leading representatives of Germany and Israel, and when we commemorated the 50th anniversary of the attack of the Munich Olympic Games, where 11 Israeli athletes were killed who wanted to participate in these games. The Palestinian terror organizations are responsible for these horrific killings, a crime that not just hit the very principles and foundations of human dignity, but also hit the entire spirit of the sports and the spirit of Olympic Games. And the same holds true for other similar horrific terrorist attacks that still are being committed. And for that, President Steinmeier, Chancellor Scholz, I would like to thank you, as well as I'd like to thank the Federal Republic and the government government of the state of Bavaria, who enabled this exchange with the victims' relatives. What is embedded is a historic investigation of what happened to bring out the truth in order to alleviate this pain that the people affected will always hold. Thank you for this very moving ceremony that took place in Munich with the Olympic associations, together with young people from Israel and Germany, together with the families of the victims. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel is part of the international efforts to keep radical forces at bay who spread terror and mistrust and who threaten every citizen in this world. During our times, dark, hateful forces led by Iran do not only threaten the state of Israel and the fragile balance in the Middle East, but the entire world order. And from this place here in Berlin, this important place in Berlin, I call upon the nations of the world to decisively oppose Iran and its plan to develop nuclear weapons. Weapons of mass destruction in the hands of a member state of the United Nations that every day calls for the annihilation of another member state of the United Nations. That is unacceptable. Threats and actions to destroy Israel are not acceptable. And let me say this quite clearly: whoever denies the Shoah, who acts from hatred and aggression, who denies the right of existence of the state of Israel, has no right to claim to be party to any negotiations, does not have the right to claim any financial support or any other form of support. The international community has to stand on the right side of history. They have to formulate clear preconditions, have to decide on clear sanctions, have to build a wall between Iran and nuclear capabilities. Stand with resolve. Do not give up. The state of Israel will defend itself with all means. And I call upon the entire world to not just stand idly by. Ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of the German people, Germany and the German people have developed and rebuilt the entire nation after the Second World War in a very admirable way. Germany is a known country. It is a responsible, it's a leading country in many areas of the world. It's the initiator of a never-seen uprising, economic upswing here in the entire world. Germany is a leading force in Europe, in NATO. And it is now that this becomes particularly visible when it comes to supporting Ukraine and the inviolability of Ukraine. Germany will play a leading role when it comes to finding a solution to this terrible tragedy. All of us want to see the suffering ended as soon as possible. We want to see freedom and stability returned in Ukraine and in all of Europe.
העשייה פורצת הדרך של גרמניה בתחום הרווחה המושתתת על תפיסות עולם מתקדמות.
What Germany achieved in the social field, equal rights, taking care of the weaker parts of society, erecting an infrastructure, all that comes together as a picture of humanity and the dignity of mankind, and this can serve as an example to all of Europe, and it is held in high esteem throughout the world. The esteem that Germany enjoys throughout the world, that makes it a leading nation in the world, is based on one thing, is based on the obligation to stand up to its past, but also an obligation towards the future of mankind. Germany has proven and continues to prove that it takes this culture of remembrance seriously. At the same time, it puts major efforts in innovation, in entrepreneurship, in science and technology, in research, and many other fields. All areas on which our future depends. The State of Israel is proud to be a partner of the State of Germany, and we cherish this friendship of this deep alliance between our two countries. The German contribution towards security and stability of Israel is held in high esteem in our country. I'm convinced that our joint values, the deep friendship between our two countries, would continue to foster this relationship, this partnership, so that we continue along this path that Germany and Israel walk together, side by side, hand in hand, towards a prosperous future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Israeli poet I quoted at the beginning of my speech, Shilucham Michai, Ha'am Shelichai, my people lives. Those are the components of his name. Again refers to the stone on his desk in Jerusalem, which is part of a gravestone in the Jewish cemetery. At the end of my speech, I would like to again quote from a poem, and I want to express my hope that these words can be the foundation for our partnership that is nourished by the past and the future. These are his words. This stone on my desk gives me peace. It is a stone of truth, immovable, wiser than any stone of the wise. It is a stone, a fracture of a gravestone. It is a stone of witness of everything that ever happened and of everything that will ever be. It is a stone of Amen and a stone of love. Amen, Amen. This is how it should be. Thank you.
President HerZOG there in his first official visit as President of the State of Israel to the German Bundestag, receiving a standing ovation from the German Parliament today in a speech that speaks about the Holocaust, of course, the 50-year anniversary of the massacre at the Olympics in 1972 in Munich, in which 11 athletes were murdered from Israel. 17 people died altogether. Also speaking, of course, about Iran and the need to prevent a nuclear Iran in order to protect the stability of the Middle East and the future of the State of Israel. Talking also about Ukraine and the mutual values that Germany and Israel share in standing with Ukraine and hoping for a return to routine in Ukraine as swiftly as possible. Of course, in a long-standing ovation there for President HerZOG, who is now exiting the German Bundestag, together with President Steinmeier, with Chancellor Scholz.
Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have. Well, nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, unfortunately, and they should have.